I regret not playing World of Warcraft for the past couple years. And while I've always dreamed of saying this, I didn't expect to say it so soon after a couple rough expansions. With how WoW was shaping up, or rather shaping down, with the expansions Battle for Azeroth and Shadowlands, I didn't have the fervor to keep up with Dragonflight during its launch. I thought it was going to be another blip in WoW's life that I could more or less skip, but boy was I very wrong. With World of Warcraft, The War Within on the horizon, I thought this would be the best time to jump back into Azeroth and see if I could reignite the spark I had for the game when I was 10 years old. And with my return to the game, I was faced with the amazing new feature of Chromie Time, where you can pick which expansion to level in. And with all the pre-patch updates, the Dragonflight expansion became the default leveling expansion. And so I thought to give it the good old college try to see if anything stuck. Well, in today's video, I'm going to discuss and dissect my current experience with the expansion and reflect on why I feel regretful for not playing during its prime. One element I must give credit to is World of Warcraft's ability to seamlessly weave into expansions without necessarily needing to have played the previous. This quality really became noticeable around the era of Warlords of Draenor, and I'm very pleased to have experienced some of the highest quality story exposition with this expansion of Dragonflight. Initiating an expansion with an auto-slotted quest for the player to accept, and clearly telegraphing where to go sets the player up for success. Continuing with classic quest text is nice to briefly read up on the call to action, but WoW continues to level up their storytelling game by almost immediately showing the player a fully voiced, animated cutscene to really set the stage for who the characters of the story are, what the conflict will be, and also where the region of the story is. So all of this was wonderful to witness as a player who felt quite lost with where I was in the current timeline. After the heavy lifting of the cinematic, the game wastes no time getting you to the Dragon Isles, but does so in a very organic way that I really appreciate. I then had to speak with various characters who functioned as my core group of expeditioners, coming along with me to the Dragon Isles. Having NPCs in an MMO follow along may seem rather boring or even unnecessary, but is important to make said story feel as organic as it can be. Being the hero to go off on your own can drum up a sense of big alpha energy, but having the world around you react to current events makes the story feel more alive and grounds itself for a player to begin to care about what will happen next. Upon landing in the Dragon Isles, I was faced with my initial conflict of fighting off enemy proto-drakes and establishing a foothold for my group of adventurers. And this is where the story and its structure really kicks off. The story structure has us witness an act in the reformation of the titular Dragonflights, groups of dragons tasked with protecting the Dragon Isles against the threat of the Primalists, elemental dragons seeking to oppose the Dragonflights. One of the main primal incarnates players face is Razagath the Storm Eater, who functions as a quote-unquote main villain across the main story's campaign. Speaking of the main story's campaign, what's the general flow like? Well, with all the quality of life changes to World of Warcraft, Blizzard has graphically differentiated regular side quests and main story quests, so it's much easier to focus on the campaign and less likely you'll get off track. As you quest throughout the regions, you are faced with the various kill and collect, escort, and go talk to quests, which is all good and fun, and this is the status quo for MMOs after all. But Dragonflight keeps it interesting by peppering in fun minigame-esque quests. I particularly love those stealth quests where you have to dash between scouts and get to an objective before you're found. Along with mixing up the quests every so often, I was pleasantly surprised with how much cinematic effort was put into the storytelling. There are both in-game rendered cutscenes and animated cutscenes, which emphasize major plot points and allows them to breathe in a world of their own. Putting an even greater effort and budget behind their main story allows even the most casual of World of Warcraft players to feel a greater connection to the story events unfolding before them, even if they are just looking to race to endgame raids and dungeons. One of the major features which launched with Dragonflight was a massive rework to the talent trees for all the classes. This has been my favorite addition to the game, and really exemplifies the forward momentum WoW seems to have, being bold enough to add so much class flexibility and choice, and not holding to the previous limited talent selection of old. This overhaul made the gameplay experience leaps and bounds better from the jump. While we've covered the moment-to-moment gameplay of quests, dungeons are still very much a staple for WoW's leveling system. Opting to main healer, I found my dungeon experience to be very forgiving, both in terms of queue times and actual healing demand. Now, it may just be because we're in the end of Dragonflight's life, and everyone has more or less outgeared the dungeons. But as a healer, I have found little reason to actually heal my teammates, which is a bit unfortunate if you ask me, as I think it does a disservice to those who are just learning to heal. However, if you're new to the game and or a role, I would really recommend for players to experience the new follower dungeons added to Dragonflight. These dungeons set you up with 4 other NPCs, all programmed to tackle the dungeons with you. These are truly phenomenal additions to the game, and I opted to try out a few of the follower dungeons when I was first queuing up as a healer, just so I could remember my rotations and spells, and I had a really great time, not having that stress of other players blitzing through a dungeon, and or just wanting to learn how the mechanics actually roll out in real time. It's a great boon to have. And I think the best and most important bit of reflection I have for this section is that I continue to want to log in and play Dragonflight. Even when it's late at night and I should be logging off to go to bed, I find myself flying to the next quest marker to continue my momentum, or I queue up for more dungeons to collect loot and fight in encounters. When it comes down to the experience of gameplay, it really can come down to such a simple question of, am I having fun? And I can confidently say that I indeed am. A major feature added to Dragonflight was the dragon riding experience, where you would tame dragons to ride in the Dragon Isles. This offered a vastly different flight experience not yet felt in World of Warcraft. Since its implementation, dragon riding has been a major success, so much so that it was renamed to Skyriding and extended to almost all flying mounts in the game. Skyriding is some of the most fun movement I've ever experienced in WoW. Now, I don't know if it fully beats out Guild Wars 2's mount system, but it is one hell of an improvement for WoW. I do find the ease of skywriting to be a major benefit, as it makes it incredibly easy to traverse vast distances in such a short amount of time. Alongside the innate fun with skywriting, Blizzard's addition of aerial race tracks is a huge boon to questing in the Dragon Isles. These races serve as a brief, optional reprieve for players to test their flying skills, and jump into a form of content that is there for pure enjoyment, and maybe a bit of self-rage if you're trying to beat your best times by just those milliseconds. On top of the innate success with dragon riding, and also the race tracks peppered throughout the regions, I found simply moving through the expansion to be so much more enjoyable than I ever remember World of Warcraft being. And some people might not really expect it, but just having a person enjoy every second of movement, and just movement, can be shockingly beneficial to an overall great first impression. And as I am nearing the end of Dragonflight's campaign, I am so excited and pleased to be back in World of Warcraft and experience this sense of childlike wonder when I'm logging into the game. Now, of course, I can't revert my brain back to those young years, but it is nice to tap into something that I had such fond memories of as a child. And with all of these elements talked about today, from the story exposition to establishing that foothold and then having the player character traverse through each of the regions in a very satisfying manner, my first impressions and general review of Dragonflight is astoundingly positive. Even doing some of the side quests, you encounter some more cute and light-hearted narratives that alleviate some of the world-ending stress that the main storyline is throwing at you, and having that balance is extremely important, It allows you to get a little taste of everything. Moments where you are a major hero defending Azeroth, and some other times where you're just helping out some draconids, do some gardening in a region and tending to ducks. It really is just wonderful. So yes, I do regret not playing World of Warcraft these past couple years, especially to experience Dragonflight and its prime alongside everyone else. And with what I'm hearing for the World of Warcraft expansion, The War Within, I am very excited to see how playing an expansion in its prime will feel, as I haven't done so ever since Legion, I would say, and I know we all have very fond memories of Legion. While I can admit that I regret not playing World of Warcraft these past couple years, I am extremely excited to play World of Warcraft these next couple years for its newest expansion, The War Within. Thank you all so much for coming on by and watching this little first impression review video as someone re-enters the World of Warcraft. Comment down below your thoughts about the entire expansion of Dragonflight, as we are very near to its final moments as we transition to this new expansion, The War Within. I'd love to hear your thoughts or highlights with the game, as you might have played it during its live prime. And if you'd like to support the channel, I have a Patreon where you can get early access to videos. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, everyone. Mwah.